Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our service today. I am just absolutely thrilled and delighted that it's raining. I hope you're thrilled and delighted it's raining. All of our farmers are absolutely delighted with the rain. So, our call to worship today comes from Psalm 85. And I'm just going to read from verse 8 and then we'll pray. Let me hear what God the Lord will speak. For he will speak peace to his people, to his saints. But let them not turn back to folly. Surely his salvation is near to those who fear him, that glory may dwell in our land. Steadfast love and faithfulness meet. Righteousness and peace kiss each other. Faithfulness springs up from the ground, and righteousness looks down from the sky. Yes, the Lord will give what is good, and our land will yield to its increase. Righteousness will go before him and make his footsteps a way.
Matthew 14, verses 13 to 21 and 22 to 33. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by a boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed those who were ill. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. "Bring them here to me," he said. And he told the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God."
So over the last 9 weeks, we've watched Jesus show us what the kingdom looks like in real life. Not theory, not abstract, but everyday compassion, courage, welcome, trust, patience, and surrender. if you feel like a really challenging sermon experience next week after church here, pop over to Drummer League, who are going to hear a sermon by Chuck about the destructive power of a grudge. Imagine. Today, Matthew brings us these two scenes, a quiet hillside and a stormy sea, where all those themes that we have looked at collide. On the hillside, Jesus meets real hunger. On the sea, Jesus meets real fear. And in both places, he shows us what the kingdom looks like when it becomes visible, embodied, and practical. This is the everyday kingdom, compassion that feeds, calls, and saves. So we're going to look at 4 marks of that compassion in the kingdom. So when we get to the 4th, you'll know. You don't have to listen to too much more. My first point is that compassion interrupts Jesus' grief. Remember that at the beginning of our reading, it says, now when Jesus heard this, he withdrew there in a boat to a desolate place by himself. But what had he heard? He'd heard about John the Baptist being killed. He'd heard about how he had been killed. That Herodias had asked for the head of John the Baptist on a platter. Horrific. He'd just heard this devastating news that his cousin, his co-worker in ministry, had been killed. And so he wanted to withdraw to a quiet place. He's grieving, he's exhausted, he's human. And you know how that is. You know what it is to grieve, to be shattered, to be human. But when he arrives, the crowd is already there. Most of us, when we're hurting or we're tired, we put a do not disturb notice up. Nothing to see here, leave me alone, I'm shutting my door. Jesus does the exact opposite. The human logic is send the need away. We don't have enough. But Jesus' compassion says something completely different. Draw them close. Bring what you have. Compassion interrupts his sorrow. He sees the need of the people and he draws them close. And this is the first mark of the kingdom. Compassion often begins when our plans are interrupted. So imagine, I know I have a different life to you, but imagine for yourselves, you come home after a long day and you're hoping for a little bit of quiet. But a neighbour knocks, or a friend calls, or a child needs you, or there's some crisis. Human nature says, I have nothing left to give. I'm going upstairs and I'm going to crawl under my duvet. Maybe that's just me. But kingdom compassion says completely something different. It says, I will open the door anyway. Do you have a story about how you were spent and empty and the Lord asked for more? Jesus shows us that compassion is not something that we do when life is tidy. It's something we do when life is messy. My second point is that compassion multiplies what is small. Evening comes. The crowd is hungry. The disciples see the problem. Send them away to get food. Jesus sees an opportunity. They don't need to go away. Then he gives them, the disciples, the impossible command. You give them something to eat. Imagine. You're one disciple, you're one person, and you're told by your master to just feed people, 5,000 of them. I'm only asking for 30 on August the 12th. They look at what they've got, what they're given by someone else. 5 loaves, 2 fish. It's nowhere near enough. We know that. The math does not compute. But Jesus doesn't ask them for what they don't have. He asks them for what they have. He blesses it, he breaks it, and he hands it back. Everyone eats everyone is satisfied, there are leftovers. And that's the second mark of the kingdom today. God begins with what we have, not with what we wish we had. We often look at the needs around us, poverty, loneliness, youth mental health, family strain, and we think we don't have enough. We can't help here. The new Spider-Man movie that I was supposed to go and see yesterday, but didn't happen, so I'm going to see it this evening. But the new Spider-Man movie opens with these scenes. People searching for connection. Gratitude videos posted online. Petitions being addressed to AI companions. Confessions rehearsed but never sent. And Spider-Man is praised as the hero every adult relies on and every child wants to be. Now, those of you who are in this universe with me know that Doctor Strange took the memory of everybody on the planet, and so nobody knows that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. And so he is lonely. There is Spider-Man doing the work. He's exhausted. He's doing the work, but he doesn't have his friends around him. Even his little girlfriend, I can't remember what she's called now. I want to say Sarah Jane. Does anybody know Spider-Man's girlfriend? Say again?
It's MJ.
MJ. Okay, Mary Jane, yeah. So, I got part of it right, didn't I? Yeah. So anyway, so even she doesn't know that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Peter Parker has been wiped off the face. Spider-Man's still doing his work, but he's lonely, he's exhausted, and this, the story that I'm going to see tonight goes on from there. I don't know what happens next after that. We cannot be Spider-Man. Well, I don't think we can. But maybe we have a spare room, or an hour on a Tuesday, or a listening ear, or a small gift, or a simple act of kindness. 5 loaves of time, talent, or treasure multiplied by Jesus. Where are you saying we don't have enough instead of here is what we have? My third point is that compassion calls us into the impossible. That night, Jesus sends the disciples out in a boat so that he can have some quiet time. And a storm rises and there's strain at the oars. They're far from land, they're far from any control, far from comfort. And Jesus comes towards them on the water, and as we heard, they think it's a ghost. But he says, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter steps out of the boat, not because the waves have calmed, but because Jesus is there. I have just reminded myself that there's a book by John Ortberg, If You Want to Walk on Water, You've Got to Get Out of the Boat, which I have now got on my list of things to read this week. Walking on water is impossible. Don't get me wrong now. Don't try this at home. Walking on water is impossible. But Peter manages it for a few steps because he has his eyes fixed on Jesus. This is the third mark of the kingdom about Jesus. Jesus often calls us into places that we feel is beyond us. Stepping out of the boat looks like having a hard conversation you've avoided, or standing up for someone when everyone else is silent, or leaving a familiar routine because Jesus is nudging you, or taking on a need that feels bigger than your resources. Jesus doesn't ask us to be strong. He asks us to trust him. What boat of safety or control is Jesus asking you to step out of? I think we were all reminded this week about trust when NAMA has been dissolved, which meant that we went back to the beginning of why NAMA arrived into Ireland. And the fact that I have a friend who worked in a bank, and when she stopped working in the bank, she was given a load of shares, a lot of shares. And she was told, whatever you do, don't sell these shares. Whatever you do, these are as safe as houses, they're as safe as anything, do not sell these shares. She's working part-time in Tesco now because her shares were wiped. And that's our memory, that's our Irish memory of what happened back then. Our trust left us. Around that same time, Tesco, Shepherd's pie value, shepherd's pie. Remember when they used to do Tesco value? Had horse meat in it instead of meat, instead of beef meat. Again, trust. We lost trust in things, in institutions and things, but we never lost our trust in God. Hopefully that works, and that says the same to you. My fourth point is that compassion rescues sinking faith. Peter walks, Peter fears, and Peter sinks. He prays the shortest prayer in Scripture, Lord, save me. Jesus does not hesitate. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. He doesn't wait for Peter to swim back. He doesn't lecture him first. He rescues him. So Peter's faith journey in the storm looks something like this. He steps out, he's got the eye on the wind, he sinks, he prays, he's saved. Faith, fear, humanity, cry, grace. This is the fourth mark of the kingdom. The kingdom is not about never sinking. It's about who catches you when you do sink. Storms don't give us any warning. They just appear. A late night phone call, a sudden diagnosis, a financial shock, a wave of anxiety. These things just come to us. And in those moments, looking at the wind means doom scrolling, checking bank accounts every hour, rereading painful messages, imagining worst case scenarios. But Jesus is still there, still coming towards you, still reaching out his hand. This week, one of the reasons I was reading The Guardian yesterday was because one of the headlines had caught my interest, so I went to Press Reader to read it. In the UK charts, a record has been broken that has stood since the record, I believe, which is all about Jesus, by the way. So it had got 15 weeks in the charts when the charts first came about in 1950-something. And this week, that record has gone. And the reason why it caught my interest was they'd spelt it wrong because they said it was Raining Me. And I'm going, oh, Raining Me, it's number one. And it's been number one for 15 weeks because we have a song in here called Raining Me with a G in it. But it was Rain, R-E-I-N. And these are some of the lyrics. They could have been written by Jesus, these. There's nothing brave in walking alone. Loving exile is nowhere to go, so come on home. Don't run away from my tenderness. The song is not a Jesus song. The song that we have, Rain in Me, says this: over every thought, over every word, may my life reflect the beauty of my Lord, because you mean more to me than any earthly thing, so won't you reign in me again? What waves have your attention right now? What's distracting you? Is it pop culture, computer games, doom scrolling, or something else? Are you willing to cry out simply and honestly, Lord, save me? Would you ask him today to reign in you? On the hillside, Jesus meets hunger, and on the lake, he meets fear. But in both places, he's the same. He's compassionate, he's present, and he's powerful. And that's the everyday kingdom. Compassion that feeds, compassion that calls, compassion that saves. We bring our 5 loaves, our tired hands, our shaky feet, our 3-word prayers, and Jesus does what only he can do. The same Jesus who feeds you on the shore is the Jesus who holds you in the storm. I'm going to leave it there for today.